blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like an Evazine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off. Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like an Evazine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off.
Blast off on another episode of Hero Paranormal Podcast, broadcasting from the base at La Madre Mountain, just south of Area 51. My name is Ryan, the original overseer of the airwaves, bringing you a great episode today. Ryder Lee is our amazing guest today. Ryder is the host of the popular podcast Raised by Giants and also has a YouTube channel. Ryder is a spiritual teacher and helps others to create better realities for themselves through awakening. Ryder is an excellent gauge, I've found, where it matters most. He can question reality and do so in an intelligent, healthy way, finding truths within our reality. Ryder has had downloads of sorts, which have proven very informative. Ryder, welcome to the Hero Paranormal Podcast.
Thanks so much for asking me back on, Ryan. It's an honor and a privilege and a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much.
Yeah, there's so much that has taken place. It's 2022 now. Do you think this year is going to be any better than the last two?
I mean, I really hope so, but based on my logical perception, don't have high hopes. And that might sound pessimistic, but I think that a lot of things are going to happen. But again, it's all in how we deal with them, right? Are we going to let them be self-defeating or are we going to rise above them? You know, and that's a big question that not only carries over into the collective, but on an individual level as well in our personal life, in our everyday life. Are we going to deal with problems and situations in our personal life in a negative manner, in a negative fashion, or are we going to rise above them? You know, and that's the big question, right? That and we have the ability to do that. You know, we have an ability to rise above all of the bullshit that's happening in our collective reality. You know, just like we would be able to do it in our personal reality. It's just that a lot of people aren't on the same page when it comes to a collective reality. We're very divided consciously, physically, spiritually. You know, it seems like no one can agree on anything. And that's been a manipulation not only from us distorting our perception and pushing us in that direction, but it's also came from outside influences as well. So I think that we have a lot to overcome in the coming years, but I think that whenever we get out of this really rough patch, something really beautiful and something really amazing is going to be built after it all inevitably collapses. And that's the rough part that's going to catch a lot of people off guard, because something just can't be built on the back of a broken system, right? Something good just can't be built out of something that's been completely corrupted and compromised, right? It all has to fall and it all has to crumble regardless if we get the kind of system they want, the surveillance system, the Agenda 21 reality, or if we get something brand new that's positive for everybody on the planet. It all has to go. Either way that we go, it all has to crash and burn and come tumbling down like a house of cards.
Yeah, and it's like a lot has been shown in the media, which kind of catches me off guard. But like the movie, obviously The Matrix, which the latest one was, regardless of what people's thoughts are on it. And then the other movie, Don't Look Up, Have you seen these movies? What are your thoughts on them if you have?
Yeah, I watched both of them. I just watched Don't Look Up yesterday. I finished it yesterday. It was way more funny than I expected it to be.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? There was a lot of innuendos and like subliminal takes on us as a society in there. You know, and I felt like they really placated upon that fact, and a lot of it would kind of go over normal people's heads that are really immersed in this kind of society that we've built. But I think for, you know, a lot of the awakened people and the ones that have done a lot of work and get it, we'll see a lot of comments about our society within it, you know. But as a movie as a whole, like the outcome of it, I don't think that that's what's going to happen. I don't think that an asteroid or whatever is going to hit the planet and completely destroy it. If there was, then there would be some kind of outside force to take care of that, unless they completely washed their hands of it, and that's what they wanted, was a complete and total destruction of the planet, which they wouldn't be stopping, you know, nuclear attacks and stuff of that nature if they were just going to let an asteroid come in 10 years and destroy the planet.
Right.
You know, so I don't think that that's something that is going to happen in our reality, but it's a potential for something like it, like a big natural disaster or unnatural disaster that happens that wipes out a portion of the population, because we know that they love to use weather modification weapons, and they can create storms out of seemingly nothing by manipulating the electromagnetic field of the planet. And they can create tsunamis, tidal waves, really intense storms. They have the ability to do all of that stuff. So whether it's going to be a natural occurring event or an unnatural occurring event, we are going to see a lot of more perceived natural disasters. And I think that a part of it is from the Earth changing as well, because the Earth goes through these cycles, right, where the poles can slightly shift, and even a slight degree can change a lot of the Earth's crust, and can make it to where some places that were green before are no longer green, like in the places that were desert, that were green before are desert, right? Our environment is constantly changing, and I think that a lot of people that are in control of our reality to a certain degree, and again, I don't know who they are, and I don't claim to know who they are, but I think that a lot of them are human, know this, and they're prepared for it, and they've been hitting us with the okie-doke. The okie-doke is what I call it, you know, whenever you tell someone one thing when it's really another thing. And they've been hitting us with this
a lot of that.
Yeah, there's been a crap ton of that, but they've been hitting us with the opposite of what's actually happening, and they've been blaming us for it, right? They've been making it about a heating, and when it's not, the planet isn't getting warmer, the planet's actually getting colder, and then they're trying to blame the situation on us and our inability to care for the environment. and which there is a lot of that going on. I mean, you know, our oceans are really polluted. We've been tearing down trees. We've been destroying the Amazon rainforest. We've been, you know, dumping chemicals into lakes and rivers and hazardous chemicals and all that. And that's not doing anybody any favors. And I'm not trying to say that that's not happening, because it really is. We do need to be better to the earth and the planet that we live on. But there's something else going on there. And it all isn't our fault. The earth is going through its natural changes that it does every single cycle, and the people that are in control know this, and they're blaming it on us, right? Because there always has to be a blame game. They're always going to blame another group, another entity, another you know, country or whatever it is, and never take responsibility for their actions. They are actually the ones that has perpetuated this whole thing. Right? If they want to blame it on, you know, natural gases and power plants and, you know, farmhouse gases and like all these different things, well, they're the ones that's continuously propping it up, you know? And, you know, I don't own a power plant. I don't own a chemical processing plant. I'm not the one dumping hazardous chemicals into the ocean. You know, I'm not the one dumping it into the rivers. You know, but they're supporting the ones that do.
And it has become a kind of a pay-to-play system where, like you said, the ones that are getting paid these carbon tax credits, et cetera, for these big polluting countries at this point are the same one. So they're making money on the basic ability to allow people to pollute. It makes no sense. And these are the same people that are at the same parties together. And yeah, the chemical companies are close friends with the people that are in charge with the EPA because they have working agreements, and the EPA has, you know, the UN. Anyway, it goes, it's just, I'm right there with you. And a lot of people have blinders on, believing this type of stuff does not exist, and it's alive and well. And in your opinion, this all comes down to belief systems. And like you said, it's strange. How important are belief systems, in your opinion, to people?
Belief systems are very, very integral in shaping and creating our personal reality, because what you believe is what you bring into your world. Right? Belief is the strongest consciousness manifestation that we have, you know. And whenever we get people to believe in something, it doesn't matter if what they're believing in is real or not, as long as they believe in it, right? And as long as you've got a certain group of people that are collectively believing in a narrative, in a thought, in a idea, in whatever is going on in the world. And that's why the manipulation of the media is so important, because it can literally sway people's beliefs based on unproven, unstatistical, unscientific theories, by just flipping on whoever they want, whatever talking head that they want to bring on to talk about it. You know, and that shifts the beliefs and the perception of the people. And then that also comes down to a consent factor. You're also getting them to consent into that belief. And then the longer that you do that, the more that becomes installed in the consciousness, into the collective consciousness of the people. And then again, the longer that's there, the harder it becomes to shift that belief and shift that perception, because it's been beaten and pounded in to every single person on the planet. That's why they want to start with children first, right? That's why the school system is so integral in this whole process, because if you can get low developed minds to believe in something, then they are going to carry that on for the rest of their life. And then that develops other problems, because a lot of times, even when they're shown that what they believe isn't true, and you had, like, let's say you had the complete facts, like you had all of it right in front of them, you're showing it to them, no, this isn't the way that it is, blah, 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 blah. They're still going to believe it, and they're still going to go back to that core indoctrinated belief that they were told when they were younger.
And I hate to bring up the movie Don't Look Up again, but it reminds me exactly of that. I mean, it's literally like, dude, it's right there. Look up. It's right there. Like, there's the reality. And if people, their belief system allows the media to beat into them what to think. And I thought, it is kind of that simple, is people just have to open their eyes. And kind of to let me switch gears just a little bit, Ryder. Is there a select group, in your opinion? I think we both agree that there is, that has, the reality sort of at their fingertips. They know some of the tricks. But do you believe that there is a select group that have retained knowledge, whether having to do with extraterrestrials or interdimensionals, knowledge of their existence, or possibly more like a reverse engineered craft of sorts? Who is retaining the knowledge and why?
Well, that's a complicated question, and I think that it's a multi-layered cake, right? It's got caramel on it, it's got chocolate, it's got icing, it's got vanilla, it's got all of these different layers of the onion. It's like a blooming onion, right? Once you peel back one onion, like you keep going, and it seems like it's a never-ending kind of rabbit hole, because they give us one perception that they push out through the media, and we see that with the UFOs and the aliens in the ETs in the media. Not so much the ET side, but the UFO side a lot, right? And it's one agenda, right? It's to install fear surrounding it, and that it's a threat to our national security, right? And
right.
I see that as like everything that they do, Ryan, is a setup. It's all a setup for the future and the future agendas that they want to pull off, right? We've seen this so many times in the past through movies, television, and just the subliminal things and the symbolism surrounding it. And people don't pay attention. And it's exactly like and they don't pay attention until after the fact.
Yes,
right?
yes.
They're like, until the event has actually happened in real life, that's whenever they go back and they're like, well, we were shown this. They showed us this like in like I think it was the 2012 Olympics.
Exactly, with the ritual with the kids and the sick kids in the beds. I don't know how many people have seen this, but this is pretty widespread, and I'm with you, man. I agree. The mainstream, for a moment, embrace this. They throw it down. They put it and what's strange is this is what I went to school for, was communications, and they call it the hypodermic needle theory. And the theory is that you can make life imitate art by just injecting this idea. And you inject this idea through art or the media, and then people will feed on it and imitate it to the point where they make it happen. And, the CIA and the FBI and very deep controlled think tanks have used this to make amazing technology. They've used it out in Area 51. I can think of one case where, not to go off on a tangent, but they basically showed a video to a guy of a pilot dying trying to make something work. But no pilot died. It was completely set up, stage made broadcast. And, but because that guy saw that pilot die in his mind, he figured out a way to make something happen that up until that point, no scientist could make happen. And you hear these rumors, but kind of bouncing around a little bit. A lot of people have had a couple of hard years, like we were discussing, under their belt at this point. And I'm not sure where you are with all this, but I've heard rumors that the majority of open-ended 5G projects were turned on January 5th, 2022. And is it me, or are we getting off to kind of a rough start to sort of a year everybody kind of needs to be easy? Have you heard this about the 5G, and where do you sit on it?
Well, I want to go back really quick to the don't look up thing, because I think that's really important.
Please do.
Just like whenever they were, spoiler alert for the movie, if you haven't watched it, go watch it. Toward the end, whenever they were telling everybody to not look up, right? And then there was like basically half the country that, well, I would say more than half the country that wasn't looking up, and then a smaller percentage was looking up because it was right in front of their face, right? And then at the end, whenever it was to the point where the people that weren't looking up couldn't deny it anymore, because it was literally staring them dead in the face. But at that point, it was completely too late, right? It was over. There was absolutely nothing that they could do about it at that point. And I think that that's what all this is for, Ryan, is to get us so psychologically manipulated, twisted, and turned to the point that we don't realize what's happening until it's too late. And there's absolutely nothing that we could possibly do about it, because the agenda has already unfolded. And that's a big reason why a lot of these things are happening, and why I think that a lot of it isn't going to come to light to the general public, because they've been so brainwashed and psychologically manipulated for so long that they aren't realizing what they're doing. And they're not going to realize it until they're either dead in the grave and it's too late, or it's staring them directly in the face, and there's absolutely nothing that they can do about it. But to your question about the 5G, see, whenever I heard David Icke talk about this in the very beginning of 2020 about the 5G radiation, making people sick and manipulating, people's DNA to a certain degree. I mean, we know that that's possible. I mean, our technology is not doing us any favors. It's actually harming us, right? The radio waves, the radio towers, the Wi-Fi in your house, the computers, your cell phone is all damaging us on a genetic level, because it's putting out a disharmonic frequency that's not resonating with the natural human frequency that we put off organically, right? So it's inverting us. It's turning us into something else. And then what he was talking about made a lot of sense. And then I started kind of going the other direction with it, where I'm like, I don't know how much of a factor that it was during 2020 or 2021. Well, maybe more in 2021, because there is proof that what they are putting in the medical treatments that they want everyone to take is like a certain kind of nanotechnology that can be manipulated by a certain frequency.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen videos about it, which I'm not, I'm very skeptical about a lot of things that I see, but I've seen this substance interact with a cell phone whenever the cell phone was turned on, and it would move and like twitch and like manipulate and maneuver itself around whenever the technology was turned on and activated. But again, I don't know how much truth there was to that video. Like, it can be easily done. And that's another thing, dude, is like there's so much stuff that
a lot of times
create.
Right? That's
you know
the
I mean?
worry. That's my fear. Yeah, the psyops.
Yeah.
It's like psyops on psyops on psyops. And by the time with all this, there's so much fake general ways of injecting Matrix theory. And a lot of people get really excited or got really excited for the latest Matrix movie, although there are different opinions about the film. The general idea of the Matrix theory was, once again in the mainstream, albeit just for a moment. I wish it would have been a little bit better, the movie, but opening people's minds to the possibility of questioning their reality. When it comes to movies and TV imitating real life and vice versa, we kind of talked about that. I'm reminded of the saying, does life imitate art or does art imitate life? I mean, they're telling us what to believe and not believe on TV nonstop, or what? I mean, it just seems not to end.
Yeah, I really like the beginning of the new Matrix movie. And that might be
it was awesome. It was
unpopular opinion on it, because I think that's a big thing that people didn't like about it. It was like parodying itself, and I really liked that aspect of it. Neo being in the video game that he basically created, because that revolves around my thought process and my downloads in my first presentation that I received, where I was basically questioning, going back to source. And if we went back to source and we became the creator of everything and we merged back with it, then what would we do? Right?
Right.
And my thought process was, well, if I did that, then I would create my own world, and then I would split myself off from source again to do it all over again and try and find my way back to me. And I think that that's the kind of concept that they were really going for in making it to where Neo created the whole reality himself, and then plotted out all of these different things to make him, to keep him anchored in that kind of reality. But again, he knew that something was wrong with it, but he just couldn't put his finger on it, and
yeah.
That's the way that I feel too. I know that something is wrong with this reality and the way that it's been set up and the construct that we find ourselves in. But it's difficult for a lot of people to put their finger on it, and they don't go down and they don't research and they don't ask the questions and they don't theorize enough and they don't talk about it with certain people, right? And they don't have an expansion surrounding that, so they just keep it bottled up inside, and then it implodes upon them at some point, or they just make peace with it and go along with their mundane life and pay taxes and work until they're 65, 70 years old, and then retire and then do absolutely nothing. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. If that's your life path on this journey, then that's what you got to do. Like, it's not a, a downplay or talking negatively to people that are like that. That's just, that's not the path that I'm on. And just because they're on a different path doesn't mean anything. But the movie was really interesting in that fact. I just wish that they would have done a lot of things differently. And because there wasn't, besides the first 15 minutes of the movie, there wasn't any larger questions to be had, right? It was a very straightforward to the end. And that Neo was on this kind of mission to find Trinity and get Trinity out of the Matrix, and they turned it into a love story, and it didn't push any boundaries like the first movie did. And even I love the original trilogy. I didn't really understand it whenever I was younger. Like, I didn't really get it too much, but whenever I went back and watched it, I was like, holy crap, this is mind-blowing stuff. And there were so many good lines in there about our reality and how it's set up, a lot of philosophy and a lot of theories. Like, whenever Neo's talking to the Oracle in the first movie and in the second movie and even in the third movie, she is dropping knowledge, like just straight knowledge that can be applied to so many things in our reality, and my favorite theory out of the Matrix, which the original trilogy, which they talked about it in the fourth movie, which I didn't get a chance to really talk about it with anybody online, so people think that I'm probably grabbing it from the fourth movie, but I already had this thought before I even knew that the fourth movie was even being made. But it's the thought that anybody could have been Neo, right? Neo didn't have to be Neo. It could have been anyone, but the problem is that they didn't believe that they were the one, right? Morpheus could have been the one. Trinity could have been the one. Anyone on that entire crew could have been the one, but they didn't believe that they were. And that's basically what she was explaining to Neo. It was like, I can't tell you that you're the one. You have to decide that on your own, right? And even if I were to tell you that you were the one, it wouldn't make a difference, and it would probably actually do the opposite effect of what's actually supposed to happen, right? It's a journey of self-discovery. And the guy that played Mr. Smith in the new movie stated that too. Whenever he went in to help out the gang toward the end of the movie, he kind of switched sides or whatever. I can't remember the exact comment that he made, but he said that any of you could have been the one. Any of you could have been Neo, but he made it really more nuanced than that. He didn't say it exactly like that. I don't remember the exact line, but that was my thought from watching the first three. And that's a concept that I think a lot of people, that has gone over a lot of people's heads because of the savior complex and people not realizing the full potential of our spiritual abilities. And that's what I've realized too, is that we are all the one. It's not just one singular person that can do all these things. We all can do that, right? And again, it just comes down to the belief that we can, just like how we started this conversation out with belief and how powerful our belief is in ourselves. But they have us constantly looking outside of ourselves for solutions and answers to our problems instead of looking within.
Yes. And man, it's so hard being a truth seeker, because that's the problem. Like, once you realize we are all in a way the one, if we want to be, if we're truth seekers. And it is getting back to sort of the paranormal aspects of reality. Do you have a particular or a favorite experience of paranormal sorts that you'd like to share for our listeners? I know that a lot of people who are truth seekers have these, including myself. And it seems that sometimes it does take that little paranormal tap on the shoulder to kind of wake up a little. Have you had anything along those lines?
Oh, several paranormal things have happened to me basically my whole life. As a really young kid, things were happening to me, and that really sparked my interest in it. And I wanted to figure more out about it and what it was, why I was experiencing these things. Is it dead people? Is it something that is completely outside of our realities and an interdimensional level? And I became a ghost hunter, and I did that for probably since the time that I was 12 to 13 until I was around 21. I did that, and I've been to some of the most haunted places on the East Coast. And I was decked out with all the equipment, dude, like full spectrum night vision cameras, EMF detectors, voice recorders. We had a 6-camera DVR set up. We would go to people's houses. We would go to well-known haunted locations that are known to have paranormal activity, like Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, the second largest hand-cut building in the United States in Weston, West Virginia, Moundsville Penitentiary in Moundsville, West Virginia, the Rectory in Cincinnati, Ohio, Prospect Place in Trinway, Ohio, Bobby Mackey's Music World in Wilder, Kentucky, Waverly Hills Sanitarium in Louisville, Kentucky. Like, all of those, different places to try and figure out and capture evidence of the paranormal, because I knew that it existed. I'd experienced it from when I was a really young kid, and I wanted to try and find some kind of evidence of it, and not for anybody else, really. I mean, we did have like a YouTube channel, and we planned on making a documentary about this place in Kentucky called the Wolf House. And it was
I'm intrigued. That sounds awesome. The Wolf House.
Yeah, the Wolf House. And how we stumbled across it is that whenever we went to Bobby Mackey's Music World for an investigation in Wilder, Kentucky, the lady that booked us in there, she was nice and was like, hey, instead of, you guys paying for a hotel or whatever, just give me like $50, and I have this other really haunted location that you can just stay the night in. And I was like, I looked at my teammate. It was just me and my friend. And I was like, yeah, let's do that. If we can get 2 out of 1 on this deal, you know what I mean? We can stay the night in a haunted place, and then we can go investigate this other reportedly haunted place, which I feel personally that Bobby Mackey's was a bust. There wasn't a lot going on there. I mean, we did capture a light coming on in the there's like this little pool hall area in the bar, and we were on the other side of the bar, because the bar is like huge. It's got like a big like stage and like all that. I don't know if you're familiar with Bobby Mackey's Music World, but we were by this like mechanical bull, and we were trying to do like an EVP session. We had our cameras and everything, and then we saw a light legitimately come on in like the little pool hall area that was like an enclosed room, and there wasn't anybody else there besides me and my fellow investigator and the tour guide. And the tour guide would like kind of just like left us alone and was in a completely separate part of the area. But whenever we went to this other haunted location that, like I stated, called the Wolf House, we stayed there for a night, and we experienced some really interesting things. And we were like, okay, well, let's come back here for 7 days. Like, let's just stay here for 7 days. We'll just make a documentary about this place, you know, because it's not a well-known location. We were probably the second people to ever investigate it. And we had all of our cameras and all of our equipment set up, and we decided to stay there for 7 days straight. And really not a lot happened in the first couple of days. You know, it was kind of like, I feel like it was, because it was more of like a psychological thing. Like with those kinds of reported demonic places, it's more of a, in my experience, is a psychological haunting as much as it can be a physical haunting. And things were very disorienting. We did capture because there's like this little loft area of the house, and we were upstairs doing an EVP session. We had like these candles lit and everything, and we were upstairs in this little loft area, and we were looking down over the balcony, and the entire first story of the house just lit up in a really, really bright white light. Like the entire downstairs lit up, and we did capture that on our CCTV cameras that we'd had positioned around the house, which was really interesting. And it happened on all of them too, even though the cameras were in different rooms. It hit all of them at the exact same time, and then we also had proof of it and time-stamped on our individual cameras that we were holding in our hand as well. But toward the end of our stay there, we decided to go into the basement of this house, and I never had a really good feeling about the basement. Something was uneasy about it, so I kind of avoided it for that reason. Mm-hmm. And then on the second to last day that we were there, we decided to go down into the basement, and we started like talking shit. You know, we were like, you know, like do something, like what are you, a pussy? Like, I'm not afraid of you, you know, slam something, like rattle a doorknob, shut a door or something like that, you know, because I was kind of getting, you know, fed up with it too, you know, like not a lot was happening. And as I said, I was like, hey, like shut the door, rattle the doorknob or something. And literally almost right after I heard that, there's two doors down in the basement that go to like these little separate like cubby hole things. And I heard the doorknob rattling. And then at the exact same time that the doorknob was rattling, my fellow investigator said he felt like that he got punched in the stomach, like he got punched like right in the gut. Mm-hmm. Right? And I was like, huh, that's really weird. And then he was like, yeah, I can't be down here anymore. So he went back upstairs, and I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go like check on him. And then he went to the toilet, and he started puking and like throwing up, and he was throwing up blood.
Whoa.
And I'm like, holy shit,
Yeah.
you know. And then later that night, we're getting ready to lay down and like go to sleep. This is the most intense experience that I've ever had, because I've never experienced anything like it before in my life. We're getting ready to lay down and go to sleep, and I stood up to go get some water out of the kitchen because I was really thirsty. And as soon as I stand up, the entire house starts shaking. Right? It's like there was an earthquake in the house.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this really weird noise in the basement, like coming from the basement, that almost sounded like a transformer, like not like a power line transformer, but like an actual like cartoon transformer, like Megatron, like shifting from a semi into, you know how it's like, you know what I mean, like how it,
Yeah.
and there was like and it also sounded like the washer and the dryer was just like being banged around, right? Like, you know, like those old school like washers and dryers that are really freaking noisy and like that move around a lot. Like you have like a really heavy load in there, and it's just like rocking back and forth and banging the shit out of things. That's what it sounded like.
Still got one. Yeah. I hear you.
Yeah, exactly. Like I've had a lot of those too. And I'm standing up, and my jaw is just dropped. Like I don't have any words for what's happening. Right? I've never experienced anything like that, and I'm looking at my fellow investigator, and I'm like my eyes are the widest that they've probably ever been. My jaw is on the ground. And I'm like, what is happening right now, bro? Like, I couldn't move. Like, I felt like that I was, like, paralyzed by, like, shock. It wasn't that I couldn't move. There wasn't, like, an entity or anything, like, making it to where I couldn't move. It was just, like, complete shock, you know? And I was like, bro, like, should we, like, get out of here? Like, I feel like it was literally so bad, Ryan, that I felt like the house was just going to collapse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, and that we were going to die in a house collapse. You know, and then this went on for like 2 or 3 minutes, like straight. And 2 or 3 minutes is a pretty long time for something like this to continuously go on. And he was like, you want to go in the basement? And I was like, no, bro, I'm not going in the basement, because if we get down there and this house does collapse, we're for sure not surviving. I'm like, let's just stick it out up here. Let's just kind of see what happens and evolve. And it eventually stopped. And to this day, I have absolutely no idea what was going on, but apparently we pissed something off in the basement, and it was trying to make itself known. And yeah, it was a super wild experience, and that's probably one of my favorite ones, because it was so unbelievably scary and terrifying, but at the same time, like, so interesting, you know, like how I can manipulate our physical matter in that way. You know, I'm just like, I was just like beside myself, like, and we were just staring at each other, like, is this really happening right now? Like, are we experiencing the same thing? Yeah.
It's like pure energy. And it is, for listeners, you know, you have done a really good job with your podcast, I think, in explaining a lot of these things and aspects of reality. And there seems to be, as you've said, a control system that imprisons the masses. And other than obviously listening to your podcast and channel, any advice for listeners to help them break out? Because, I have friends even that are like, oh yeah, I haven't left my house in this many days. Like, they work from home and they're proud of it and they don't do anything. And it's like, that is sort of any advice for listeners to help them break out of that monotony, which is so common since this whole debacle?
I would say just, there's really a lot of things that you can do that can help attempt to break out of this control system. And one of them is really realizing that you're a sovereign being, right? And as long as you're not hurting anyone, you're not physically hurting them, you're not stealing or damaging anyone else's property, then you're free to do whatever you want. That's a natural God-given right that every single one of us has, right? And they've been attempting to manipulate that perception for a really long time by making it not about us and making it about the other person, right? Oh, what, you don't care about your family? You don't care about your friends? You don't care about your wife and blah, blah, blah. And I'm not saying not to care about those people, but if it's going to be more damaging to yourself, then it's important to take a step back, right? And realize that yourself is more important than anyone else, and you should hold yourself in more high regard in that process and do what you feel in your soul. Quit going along with what everybody else is telling you. Develop your own thoughts, develop your own ideas, develop your own ideologies. Bring your own things to the table, not what other people have told you. Because that's a big problem too, Ryan, is that the majority of the information that we have, everyone, me included, a lot of times comes from other people, right? And we don't believe in ourselves enough to create our own thoughts and ideas revolving around what we've heard other people say. And I've done that basically my entire life. Like I feel like I've been really good at that aspect of it, being able to listen to someone and then cultivate and create my own thoughts and ideas based on what they've said and not taking everything that they've said as my own singular belief. And that's a very important aspect. And then also standing with integrity and not backing down and trying to always do the right thing. And there's going to be times where doing the right thing almost seems impossible, so it's easier to not do the right thing.
Right.
Right. So it's important to hold on to your integrity and hold on to your morality during all of those conflicts, within all of those situations that we might find ourselves in, because that's what's going to set us apart from the other people in our reality that's going along with whatever it is that they're going along with. They're going along with the herd. Right? There's a very interesting thing that I really liked at the end of the Matrix movie, where Mr. Smith, basically it's the end and the beginning of the Matrix 4 that are the most intriguing parts. And again, I'm going to butcher what he was saying because I I don't remember exactly what he is, but he went on like this. It wasn't Mr. Smith. It was the guy, the therapist guy. It was Neo's therapist, the new
Yes.
architect of the simulation, right? And he was like, you can do, Neo, you can do whatever it is that you want to do. You and Trinity can go and do all of these great and amazing things, but the sheep are always going to be the sheep, right? And I was like, wow, what a statement.
Scary.
Right? Because it's true, and people are so concentrated on helping other people see what's going on, and that's not a bad thing, but there's a line that has to be drawn where we know that we're not going to get anybody else, because normally whenever you push and prod at people, the more resistant that they are to it, right? And the more that we try and awaken people and get them to see and change their perception and alter their belief system, the more that they're going to resist it, right? So we have to come at it at a different angle, right? And let them go on their journey and ask them really good, solid questions that makes them question themselves instead of telling them what to believe. Because when you tell someone what to believe, you're basically no better than the other side. They have to kind of cultivate it and create it on their own. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't like plant seeds, right, of expansion and awakening and helping people, but forcing anyone to do anything never works out. It actually does the opposite of what you're trying to do, right? And they're on their own journey, right? And what Neo and Trinity eventually did at the end of the movie is they were like, oh, well, we're just going to create our own reality.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what people need to be doing, is creating their own individual reality, because we are that powerful that we can do that, right? We don't have to have permission from anybody, right? Our consciousness is so much more powerful and can override anything in our reality. If we don't want something in it, then we don't inevitably create it, right? And I think that that's a really good concept and a really good place to start with people, is helping them to shepherd in and realize how powerful they really are, and that they have the ability to bring certain things into their reality and then also keep certain things from happening in their reality.
So true. And you are an excellent gauge, and you help where it matters. I think that you have, I don't know, you're definitely a teacher of sorts. Where can people tune into what you've got going on, what you have going, and where can listeners catch up with your podcast?
You can subscribe on YouTube at Raised by Giants. I release a new video each week. I'm releasing one this evening at 6 p.m. PST with Robert Falaco. Mm-hmm. And you can if you like audio form of the podcast, you can listen on Spotify, Apple Music, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Amazon, basically anywhere that you can find podcasts, you can get it on just type in Raised by Giants, and then you can hit a follow there. And then you can like Raised by Giants on Facebook. I post when the videos are coming out, and even after they premiere on YouTube, they'll still be there for you to get on and view. And then you can also follow Raised by Giants on Instagram at Raised by Giants Pod. And if you want to email me, you have any questions, or if you just want to chat, I'm completely open to that too. And that's at Raised by Giants at outlook.com.
Thanks so much, man. I knew it would be awesome, and it always is with you. Definitely look forward to every time we talk, and can't thank you enough for coming on the podcast. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ryan. I really appreciate you, and I love this conversation, my friend. Much blessings to you, and I hope that you've had a good New Year's, and so far, I mean, we're barely into it, but I hope that everything happens for you in this new year, and many blessings to you, my friend.
You have it, ladies and gentlemen. Ryder. He is a truth seeker, getting back to important aspects of reality. And when it comes to favorite guests, he's up there because he is always on top of whatever we're talking about. And definitely go over there and like and subscribe his channel and his YouTube. And until next time, keep your eyes to the skies, feet on the ground, but don't forget to take a look around.
Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like it need Visine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off. Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like it need Visine. Blast off.